Excavators Northwest was contacted in 2018 to look at a barn in the Oak Harbor area of Washington state that was leaning and threatening to eventually collapse, taking out an adjacent structure in the process. Built in 1907, the farm was purchased in the 1950s by the current family, who converted it to a dairy farm and ran it that way until around the year 2001. The pressure from the leaning barn had already begun to warp the roof trusses of the adjacent one, which are clearly visible, as well as the warping of the timbers and the bend to the connecting wall. Restoring the original barn was prohibitively expensive. Even simply replacing the roof came with a hefty price tag, and it wouldn't have addressed the lien on the building. 2 years went by while they attempted to find a way to save the barn. They eventually concluded that the only course of action was to take down the old barn. But how to do it so that it did no further damage to the adjacent barn or to the surrounding buildings. Several small structures surrounded the barn, and simply pulling it over could threaten to damage those other buildings or the power lines running nearby. They devised a plan to weaken the support structures on the open side of the barn and use a steel cable pulled by a heavy truck to rip through the rafters, another cable to pull out the posts holding the roof up, and a third to guide the front face of the barn away from the adjacent building. If all went well, it would fall just enough away from the adjacent barn structure to prevent further damage to it, while collapsing upon itself enough to protect the other surrounding buildings that otherwise would be in its path. Exterior boards were removed to provide access, and a cut was made across the entire southern third of the barn to hopefully preserve the portion the owners wanted to remain standing when all was done. As much of the original wood was preserved for future use as could be salvaged during the time they had available. Support buttresses were placed to help hold the structure up as they were simultaneously weakened. Steel cable was threaded around the base of the trusses, ready to shear them off at the top of the support posts. The second steel cable was looped around the support posts themselves, which were partially cut through at the base to weaken them. To provide a straight path for the trucks to pull, anchor points were buried some distance away from the barn. These were 2-ton concrete blocks known as ecology blocks, and were buried at specific locations to anchor pulleys that would allow the towing trucks to travel a straight line path down the road and provide a continuous tension on each of the cables. A dry run of the pulling vehicles helped to dial in how much power each truck should give to the effort. Then, there was nothing more to do than to cross fingers, say a little prayer, and begin pulling the barn down.